When Apple first announced the Apple Watch Ultra, I was pretty surprised because it doesn't seem like Apple's MO to release a product that's targeted specifically to a niche group like long distance runners, hikers, and deep sea divers. If you look at Apple's product stack, they really don't have any products like the Apple Watch Ultra that target a very specific use case. And so I was pretty intrigued. Now, I am not a long distance runner or a deep sea diver or a hiker. While I have done a couple of those things, not to the extent that it seemed like the Apple Watch Ultra was targeted for. So I decided to review this product with a little bit of a different approach. Since I'm not an Apple person, I decided what would it be like to use the Apple Watch Ultra without an iPhone? Specifically only activating the Apple Watch with someone else's iPhone and then using it as a standalone device. Would it still be fully featured, and could I get away with using an Android phone with the Apple Watch Ultra? Let's talk about it. This is InnoIso, and this is the Apple Watch Ultra review. So when I first got it out of the box, it was actually easier than expected to set up the Apple Watch Ultra. Yes, it was a little weird setting it up without my own iPhone, instead provisioning one of my other iPhones with a different account to treat it as a family member, which normally this is targeted towards, like, you know, you have a kid and you don't want to give your kid an iPhone, so instead you just give them an Apple Watch, so then you can keep an eye on them, communicate with them, or whatever else. It's kind of weird, to be honest, and it's a very specific use case, but I wanted to try it out for myself. Now, I've been using an Apple Watch for the last couple of years. The Apple Watch 6 is my current Apple Watch, and it's fared me pretty well. It's my favorite smartwatch that I typically use, but it's not really great for me considering I can't get notifications because I don't use an iPhone. But it works great for fitness and stuff like that. And once I paired the Apple Watch Ultra, then I got to enjoy the full experience that is a $800 Apple Watch. I know that price sounds pretty high, but if you're in the market for an Apple Watch anyways, and you want the LTE, and you want the stainless steel or the higher end version, and you want the nicer bands, then chances are you're already going to be paying like $600 for your Apple Watch, maybe $650. Or maybe even $700. And if that's the case, then the extra $100 to $200 for the Apple Watch Ultra might just be worth it. Here's the way that I think about it, or justify it. The Galaxy S22 Plus is $200 more than the Galaxy S22. It's got a larger screen and it's got better battery life, and that's about it. That's the exact same thing with the Apple Watch Ultra. It is an Apple Watch 8 with a larger screen and a better battery life. And even it's got a better casing in the titanium case. I initially wasn't so sure about the titanium case because I just thought it would add weight. But in the actual experience, ironically enough, within the first couple weeks of using it, I managed to slam my wrist into a metal bookshelf, and the Apple Watch came away with no dents or scratches whatsoever, and the bookshelf, it didn't fare quite as well. Typically, if I wear a large watch on my wrist for long periods of time, I get a little uncomfortable and my wrist starts cramping up a whole bunch. And thankfully, it didn't happen quite as much as I expected with the Apple Watch Ultra. Now, specifically when I went on runs with it, I noticed that it would bump up against my wrist if I didn't tighten it quite enough, and either way, my wrist would end up being pretty sore after the fact. But other than that, I actually wasn't too down on the whole wearing experience of the Apple Watch Ultra. Yes, initially on the first couple days, it looked really large on my wrist, but then I actually started to get used to it. Now, I'm not a watch guy, so I couldn't tell you whether small watches are in fashion or large watches are in fashion, and typically, if it's just a smartwatch, I don't really need a big screen, but I did benefit from the larger screen on the Apple Watch Ultra. It just gave me more information, there were more places to touch, there were more places to swipe, and especially considering I couldn't go and swipe and touch things on my phone, it was nice to be able to have that extra real estate. I went with the Diver's Band because frankly, when I pre-ordered, this was the last one that was available, thinking that it really wasn't for me, but the extra flexibility of the band is actually very comfortable. I was really impressed, and it actually, I like it. I like the design, and it's very unique. I don't love the fact that the crown is behind this extra kind of crown guard on the side because it makes it tougher to actually access. And I don't like the fact that there's this extra button. I usually would enjoy an extra button, the action button in this case, but in more times than not, I accidentally pressed it or it didn't do what I wanted it to do. It's cool having a custom button, but it's just very un-Apple. I noticed it was very sensitive, and so if I happened to like tweak my wrist in certain ways or brush against it, it happened to press down more often than I wanted it to. And even when I did want it to, it wasn't really the same sort of feature set that I really needed. It's nice that Apple gives you a custom button that works a lot of different places, but it just doesn't seem like it's quite fully baked yet. Now, I'm not going to lie, this extra size can get kind of annoying at times. I couldn't wear any of my dress shirts over it, so I had to specifically pull my dress shirts back or roll them up my arms. And so it really wouldn't work well in most kind of formal work environments. But in terms of design and looks, I think this is just as good looking as any Apple Watch. And if you have big wrists, which I kind of do, you're not going to have any problems with the size of this watch. I know it seemed like a big watch initially, but you get used to it very, very quickly. Now let's talk about software and my experience of using it as a standalone watch. On the first week, I decided to go on a run, and so I wanted to download Spotify playlists to my watch and then listen to them with my AirPods Pro 2, the review coming soon, on the watch itself. And yeah, the whole using it as a standalone device thing was a bad idea to start. It was a bad idea to start. Because even Spotify or a lot of other applications do not function when the watch is in standalone mode. I don't understand why, because it seems like Spotify should just be able to connect to your Spotify account. You should be able to activate the watch, and then it should be able to run standalone. But for whatever reason, that doesn't work. Now, once I actually connected to my iPhone, because I had to, Spotify works great regardless of whether I was connected to the iPhone or not. So despite me wanting to do this whole thing of trying to use this watch without an iPhone, it really doesn't make sense at this point. So if you want an Apple Watch, generally expect yourself to need an iPhone as well. Maybe ask your iPhone toting friend to pull out their iPhone 7 from their drawer and lend it to you so you can use the Apple Watch if you're interested. So now I've connected the Apple Watch Ultra to my iPhone 14 Pro, and the experience is pretty darn good. Notifications come through really easily. A lot of applications, depends on the application, but some are better and give you more functionality than the equivalent application on Android Wear watches. And fitness tracking is pretty good. Not that much better than my Series 6 beforehand. I get the same experience. Now, like I said, the comfort level is not quite as high on the Apple Watch Ultra, but I do enjoy running with it because I know that the GPS is super accurate considering it's a dual GPS. I did try Apple's new Pacer mode, which allows you to kind of run against your own time. And based off of the advertisement, it looked like you'd be able to run like a predefined route and select that predefined route. Maybe I just misunderstood, because it's not any sort of predefined route. It will just pace you in distance based off of your previous distances. And running through San Francisco and expecting to take the same route and for that same route to be just as hilly as the previous route is very, very not likely. San Francisco, if you're not aware, is just like basically random hills and random places. And so if I take a different route, chances are it's going to be a very different experience from my previous route. And not having that route on a map on the Apple Watch to be able to track against was a little bit of a downer. Oh, and Pacer set the target mile time at really my kind of best mile time rather than a average mile time for me. And so the entire time from the first minute, I was already behind because I was not sprinting. And so I don't know why they set the mile time so low. Now, granted, I am not running fast, so maybe they wanted me to run a little bit faster, but I was way behind the entire time and getting worse and worse as the run went on for the full 3 miles. Throughout my time with this watch, I never got to use any sort of the higher level use cases of it, like having a super loud speaker to, set off my location in the middle of nowhere, or having a diving function or anything like that. It really didn't have any sort of that use case for me. The one thing that I got out of the Apple Watch Ultra, which you should probably be familiar with if you've seen any other coverage of this, is battery life. Now, I didn't really expect to benefit from 4 or 5 days of battery life because I'm fine with charging my Apple Watch. I don't typically wear it to sleep, and I will not wear this to sleep for fear of knocking myself out by putting my hand on my head overnight. But not having to worry about putting it in a specific place to charge every single night, and just being able to just keep it on whenever I wanted and not worry about the battery running out was incredible. Like an average run, like a 3-mile run, typically took like 7 or 8% battery life, whereas in my normal Apple Watch, it would take 20 to 30%. And that's when it hit me. The Apple Watch Ultra is just an Apple Watch Pro. Just like Apple's other devices, where whenever they give something the Pro moniker, it doesn't necessarily mean it's made for this niche specific Pro use case. While it will fulfill those use cases for more pros, like video editors or designers or anything like that, usually what the Pro means is simply just a better version of the existing product. The iPad Pro is good for a lot of people. The MacBook Pro is great for a lot of people. The iPhone Pro is great for a lot of people. It doesn't necessarily need this specific use case. Yes, technically anyone can get by on the regular line, but going for the Pro, spending that extra couple $100 means that you're getting a much better experience in specific ways. In this case, a bigger screen, bigger battery, and a nicer design, which is basically all the things that make a Pro model in the first place. Now, does that justify a $799 price point? I don't think so. I don't think this is worth a phone. But I guess if you are the type of person who buys one smartwatch and then holds it for a longer period of time, say like 3 or 4 years versus keeping a phone for 2 or 3, that might mean that the depreciation of the device is slower over time. And so you end up getting just as much value out of it. I'm not sure if Apple's going to announce an Apple Watch Ultra 2 next year, because I don't know what would be an upgrade from what is an already very, very premium, fully featured product. But that leads me to my conclusion. If I were an Apple fan, and if I had an iPhone in my pocket all the time, and if I used my MacBook a little bit more, then the Apple Watch Ultra would be undoubtedly my first choice when it comes to an Apple Watch. And the reason is because thankfully, with enough effort, I can manage the price, especially because I'm going to probably hold it for a longer time. And it just offers so much more value to me, not having to worry about battery life and having a more premium design and all of the features, that it's kind of worth it to me. Do I recommend it to anyone? Well, probably not, especially if you're in any position where you can't afford $800 for a watch, which I perfectly understand, then you should not get the Apple Watch Ultra. But if you happen to be like a higher income individual or you have some money to throw around, then the Apple Watch Ultra is absolutely worth the additional cost for the better battery life, more premium design, and frankly, it's just a better experience. I fully came into this thinking that I would review the Apple Watch Ultra as a total joke. Why would anyone review this? But I came out of it thinking, this is the best product that Apple has announced this year. Which might be a little bit of a spoiler warning for my iPhone 14 Pro, my iPhone 14 Plus, and my AirPods Pro 2 review. But generally, I will say that this is the innovation. This is where Apple's moving forward. And I'm really excited to see them continue to do so. I'm really excited to see Android manufacturers start to go this way as well. But we'll see if that ever happens. Thank you for watching InnoIso. I hope you liked this review of the Apple Watch Ultra. If you did, be sure to let me know down in the comments and get subscribed and check out some of my other videos covering iOS and Apple products. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. See ya.